प्रभुपाद की, अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की, नामाचार्य शालिदास ठाकुर की, प्रेम से वो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद की, श्री राधा गोपीनाथ की, जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा की, the Lordship Shri Gaurav की, Nitai Gaur Premanande, all glories assembled devotees, all glories assembled devotees, all glories assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we'll continue discussion on Canto 2, Chapter 5, verse 10. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. See Canto 2, Chapter 5, verse 10. Nandritam tava tachapi Yata mam prabhavishibuho Avijñāya parammata etavatvam yatohi me nandritam tava tachapi yata mam prabhavishibuho avijñāna parammata etavatvam yatohi me nandritam tava tachapi yata mam prabhavishibuho ajñāna parammata etatvatvam yatohi me Tavattam tatohi me nandritam tava tachapi yata mam prabhavishibuho etavatvam yatohi me nandritam tava tachapi yata mam prabhavishibuho avijñāyam parammata etavatvam etahi me. So word for translation. Na, not, anritam, false, tava, of yours, tat, that, cha, also, api, as you have stated, yata, in the matter of, mam, of myself, prabhavishi, as you describe, Bhuvaho, O my son, Avignaya, without knowing, Param, the supreme, Mataha, beyond myself, Etavat, all that you have spoken, Tvam, yourself, Yataha, for the reason of, he, certainly, may, about me. Translation and purport is Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Whatever you have spoken about me is not false, because unless and until one is aware of the personality of Godhead, who is ultimate truth beyond me, one is sure to be illusioned by observing my powerful activities. Purport. The frog in the well logic illustrates that a frog residing in the atmosphere and boundaries of a well cannot imagine the length and breadth of the gigantic ocean. Such a frog, even informed of the gigantic length and breadth of the ocean, first of all does not believe that there is such an ocean. And if someone assures him that factually there is such a thing, the frog then begins to measure it by imagination by means of pumping its belly as far as possible. With the result of that, the tiny abdomen of the frog bursts and the poor frog dies without any experience of the actual ocean. Similarly, the material scientists also want to challenge the inconceivable potency of the Lord by measuring him with their frog-like brains and their scientific achievements. But at the end, they simply die unsuccessfully like the frog. Sometimes a materially powerful man is accepted as God or as an incarnation of God without any knowledge of the factual God. Such a material assessment may be gradually extended and the attempt may reach to the highest limit of Brahmaji, who is the topmost living being within the universe and has a duration of life unimaginable to the material scientist. As we get information from the most authentic book of knowledge, the Bhagavad Gita 8:17. Brahmaji's one day and night is calculated to be some hundreds of thousands of years on our planet. This long duration of life may not be believed by the frog in the well, but persons who have the realization of the truth mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita accept the existence of a greater personality who creates the variegateness of the complete universe. It is understood from the revealed scriptures that the Brahmaji of this universe is younger than all the other Brahmas in charge of the many universes beyond this, but none of them can be equal to the personality of Godhead. Narada is one of the liberated souls, and after his liberation he was known as Narada. Otherwise, before his liberation he was simply a son of a maidservant. The question may be asked why Naradaji was not aware of the Supreme Lord and why he misconceived Brahmaji to be the Supreme Lord, although factually he was not. A liberated soul is never bewildered by such a mistaken idea. But so, why did Naradaji ask all those questions like just an ordinary man with a poor fund of knowledge? So we'll just stop here and we can talk something and we can continue the purpose of Dong 1. So let's chant the Mangalacharana praise together. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Takshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stvapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadanti Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahana Lalnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sarvatutam Parijana Charitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Param Sahana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Shrute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Titanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna everyone. So before I start the class, I want to congratulate myself because I started taking Bhagavatam class from I think last August, and I finished this note of recording all the lectures. So it's I think after a long time from after finishing my uni, I've actually finished one full note. So that's a real achievement for myself. So because every time you start writing something, you start one note and then you lose this note and then you start taking notes. But then I wanted to keep a collection of all the lectures that I prepare so that it can be useful for my Vanaprastha life. So I think I'm going to start collecting that. So here as we know that this is questions asked by Narad Ji to Lord Brahma, and he's asking basically who is the Supreme Lord. And here it says, and Prabhupada very nicely explains in the purport about the frog in the well, which we all know. But as we know from Prabhupada's Leelas, that Prabhupada was always very strong on materialistic scientists, because there is one thing about having your own opinion, but influencing other people on that opinion and then taking them away from God is much more dangerous situation or a much more disservice to Lord than just having your own opinion and then carrying on with the life. Because responsibility, power and responsibility are there to be used for the welfare of the people. It's not to be used for misguiding the general population. And as we know that Sarup Damodar Maharaj, even like when he was there, like as you know, he's a scientist, and Prabhupada used to basically talk very hard on the materialist scientific, and Sarup Damodar Maharaj would think that Prabhupada is actually chastising him, and then he would say like, oh, not you, you are a devotee scientist, I'm talking about the materialistic scientist. So because their assessment of life is, or the universe is just stops until the subtle, not on the gross level, they don't go to subtle level. And the most, more than the atheistic philosophy, that the thing that they promote is that we only live for once. And it just became, it's just like a cool thing to say, like with many people, you live only once, so enjoy. Or even if you see on all these motivational speakers and people who try to induce hope in life, they always say like, go for your dreams, and you know, you've got only one life to do everything. So this creates this artificial mentality in people that just let me do whatever I want. Let me do it. I just need to enjoy life, and I'm not going to get another chance. So in that way, they are actually misguiding the general populace. And sometimes, because people don't have connection with the authentic scriptures or sadhus, some people get to know about that there is life, that is, we're not living once, but we actually live more than once, and we have multiple lifetimes. But end of the day, like Nityananda Maharaj once said, like when he met a group of people in London, he said like, people have the same, people who don't believe in God have the understanding that they live once, but then people who know the understanding that they live more than once, still they have the same understanding, okay, the things I'm doing, I might be a dog or a hog or in my next life, so now I got my human life, so better I enjoy now, rather than wasting my human life, and then if I'm anyway going to become a hog or a dog or whatever living entity, I would not have the same level of enjoyment. So he said like without the mercy and the blessing of devotee, people who know about that they are multiplied still have the same conclusion. So we have to understand that this life that we live is, and the enjoyment that we actually get from this life is very equalized. Rishabh Dev tells to his sons, the enjoyment of the hogs and the other animals, whatever they experience, the same thing that we experience. And even in the human form of life, let's say if you are earning about 50k per year, suddenly if you have a raise of salary to another 20k raise in salary, becomes 70k per year. The amount of happiness that you feel is the same amount of happiness that a person who's actually having a business for about 100k turnover every year, or every month. If he gets a 150k turnover, the happiness is experienced by him and a normal person is the same. And it's the same as a person who's a billionaire. If he's got like 10 million profit in his business, it's the same experience. There's nothing different. The quota for which we are actually, the happiness that we are actually supposed to get is actually the same. It's actually illusion to think that somebody who's rich, somebody who lives in another place, somebody who lives in another a climatical situation or a different political or economical situation, they actually have much more happiness than what people or I have or people in another region have. Because from our point of view, you might think like, oh, the people in developing countries or third world countries would be like suffering. They will not even feel happiness. But when you go there, they have the same amount of ego that any person from the first world country has. So there's no difference. So this material world is in that kind of a situation. And Prabhupada explains that even if the frog that doesn't have that experience of the Pacific Ocean or the ocean, and if somebody presents that, and it says, the other frog says like, oh, so the frog in the well says, okay, what about in summer? What happens in summer? In summer, in my well, I only have like water up to 2 meter or 2 feet depth because it's very hot and water gets evaporated. And this is drought. Only in the rainy season it gets filled out. So how much water do you have in your ocean during summertime? Now when the frog from the ocean says that, it doesn't matter because there are so many rivers which are actually pouring into the ocean. It never gets dried up, or there's never a situation where there is scarcity for water, and the frog in the well thinks that's not possible. How can that be possible? When it's summer, it's quite hot and there's no rain, so the water evaporates, and then the quantity of water becomes less. And how is he saying that it never decreases? Now this is the mentality of the scientists, because they think that they have the experience about this limited world and the certain things that happen. There can never be another realm which is unlimited. So they always want to know, how is this measurable? How is this measurable? They can't even conceive of the fact that there is another dimension which is unlimited. Like Radheshyam Prabhu for the lecture I'm preparing, he said that when he was distributing books in a train, there's one person who asks like, what are you doing? You're just wasting your life. Have you even studied or something? And he mentioned that he's passed out from IIT Mumbai, and he almost literally fainted. Like, what? You basically wasted one seat of IIT Mumbai because you studied so much, and then you took away opportunity that's supposed to go to another person, and now you are doing this like useless job. So anyway, then he asked, so how much commission do you get from selling these books? Then he said, like, we don't get any commission, it's out of service. Then that man could not understand, could not even accept the fact that how can you just, because people who study from IIT, the aim of their life is to earn more, so they go abroad and they earn like, so much comparative to a normal Indian wage. When you go abroad, they earn so much. That's the reason why they put through themselves to actually finishing IIT courses. Now, that's okay if you have finished your IIT course and you've taken this thing, but there's something that you should be getting. as a remuneration for whatever you're doing. How can you just do it for free? He couldn't understand the concept. So the reason I'm putting it is like they always think in their way of thinking, and they try to fit in the way others do. The reason others do their work is because it's the same reason that they think. So for him, he can't look ahead or more than that you're doing something for money. And to actually believe or to actually accept the fact that somebody can actually do something just as a service and not for any remuneration or any financial gain is totally out of their tiny brains to understand. It can't be true. And even if you throw the facts, then he said like, no, I'm going to come and check whether you actually, you're doing like that, and then I'm going to find out one day that you're actually getting commission. And then Radheshyam Prabhu, yeah, you're more than welcome to come to a temple. At least by that way you can actually come to temple. So that is the state where we are in. And so the point is, whether you're in a body of Brahma or body of any demigod or anything, this place is such a place that you can't be happy. Forget about all the different external things and everything, but you can't be happy in your own body, because it's going to create problem no matter how much wealth you have, how much people you know, how much networking you have. At any given circumstance, this body is going to create problem. So it's a very bad place to stay in. So again, let's continue. The next paragraph says that, like about how Narada Muni is liberated soul. Before Narada Muni, before he became as Narada Muni, he was just a son of a maid servant. And as we know that pastime from Bhagavatam, that he just served the Vaishnavas or the pure devotees during their time they stayed in his house or his mother's house at that time, the Mahatmas, and for the 4 months of the rainy season, and then he happened to serve them and then take their remnants, and because of that he got purified, and then he actually in his next birth became a liberated soul. Again, it's amazing that when his mother passes away, as we all know, like from a materialistic concept, when you have only one person to actually to give shelter, and that person passes away and you're a small kid, you actually are lost in this world. But then when his mother passed away, he because of the spiritual knowledge that he had, he felt, okay, the only person that I need to take care or I need to be dependent on is gone. Now I'm free, and I have no other choice now to just depend on the lordships. And that doesn't come out of any material education. And then he starts to meditate, and then he sees the form of Lord in his heart. And then after he sees that, he actually opens his eyes, and then he wants to see that again. But then he gets this message from the ether that you're not going to see my form again in this lifetime. And then, but that doesn't, because once you get darshan of that lordship, you can't forget it. And then it just carries him to continue his tapasya. And then after he gives up that body, he is born as Narad Muni, who is the transcendental preacher. Now, it's the same with our situations as well. Like before we took up Krishna consciousness, we had so many different ideas about religion and spirituality. But then we take up Krishna consciousness, then by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, everything becomes clear. Everything becomes very, very concise and crisp in their understanding. Because not only the material scientists who actually confuse the whole philosophy, or they don't even go to the philosophy, the whole confuse the general mass, but also yogis and the different yoga tests confuse people a lot. People are confused whether they don't know who's God first. Otherwise, they think like everybody is God. And then some person comes and thinks says, the yoga text, you are God. And some yoga texts say like actually everybody is God. So you just have to know that you are God, and then when time comes, they will know they are God. And this is what is the normal teachings of the yoga text, because they only go until Aham Brahmasmi. Instead of translating it as I am a spirit soul, they translate Aham Brahmasmi as I am God. And Bhakti Bringa Maharaj, in his recollection, he says that before he became a Krishna conscious devotee, he had the same concept. And because of reading all the yogic texts that was available at that time, he had this strong conviction that he's God. And then he said like, he even went to the local, like he was in, not in India then, wherever he's from. So he went to the local church, and he used to preach to the priest in the church and convince him about this Mayavad philosophy and say that you are God. He used to be so strong in his preaching. So he said, so I was so convincing in the preaching that I even preached to the Christian priest and then convinced him that he's God. And then he said like, I was such a rascal then, you know. And then he said, before he actually turned to Krishna consciousness, he recollected one of the experience where he and his friend used to stay in a wood house in kind of middle of the forest. And then one day it was a very nice sunny day, and then they were enjoying the view, and then they were just sitting down. And around like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, suddenly the whole thing changed. It became dark clouds, and it started to rain, and there was a storm brewing, and there was actually a storm. And they could see that that some of the trees, big branches of the trees were being cut off and everything. And he said like, me and my friend, we decided we're just going to sit there and then just watch the storm, like watching a movie from start to finish. Because we didn't have anything more useful to do. So what can we do with the middle of the forest? So they actually like sat through the whole storm, and the whole storm came and went. And then he said, and they haven't spoken with each other during the storm. They just observed the whole thing. And then after that, Bhaktivinoda Maharaj asked his friend, I think his friend name was David. And he said, David, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want a honest answer. Don't lie to me. And he said, yep, I'll not lie to you. And then he said, did you actually start the storm? Because they were actually in the opinion that they are God, right? And then he said, no, I didn't. And then David asked Maharaj, he said, did you start the storm? Then he said, no, I didn't. So he said, like at that point of time, we decided we are actually not gods. There should be someone else which is more superior. So it's the same conclusion. If you don't come to the lotus feet of a pure devotee of Krishna, it's very hard for us to understand, because theoretical knowledge is one thing where we actually can understand, and there are so many scholars in this material world as well in theology who read Bhagavad Gita, who read Srimad Bhagavatam to present in their schools, but then the presentation of the message or the delivery of the message is totally against the principles of devotional service. But somebody who's like some of the people who come to the temple, they're not actually scholarly in any way. They just want to just do some small service, right? And then, but just doing the service, they just get Krishna consciousness. It's said like like if you keep hanging around a barber shop, eventually you get a haircut. So even if you don't intend to get a haircut, so like that, just associating with devotees, just being around, just actually just coming to the place, and even though you don't not interested, just sitting and eating prasad with the devotees, and your heart becomes cleansed without you knowing it. And then you can understand that this Krishna consciousness is not something that we actually got because of intense austerity or because of any qualification. It's because of the gift of the devotees. They just gifted to us. And then how does actually Krishna Prema develop in a heart? Krishna Prema develops not because of any of our endeavor. It's something. It's a gift that's given by Srimati Radharani for you to have that consciousness. Now, when you talk about gift, gift is something that you can't demand, no matter who you are. You just, whatever, when you invite someone, it's their own free will that they come to your kid's birthday party or the party that you have actually organized. You can only invite. It's up to their own free will that they can actually come to the party or to your celebration, and then it's out of their own free will that they decide to buy whatever gift they want. Now you can't demand anybody, even if you are a richest person or the most influential person, you can't demand to your guest saying that I want such and such gift. So like that, Krishna consciousness or Krishna Prema is a gift that's provided to us by Radharani. So we can't earn that. So we only way to get it is just pleasing, doing service in the way that can actually please them, and then doing in a way that the best we can. We can't imitate Yashoda Mai, or we can't imitate Srila Prabhupada, we can't imitate the 6 Goswamis. When we hear about their pastimes, when we hear about their the devotion, that is something that we can actually aspire for. That actually gives us that goal, like at least I want to be. Now it's a very important thing that sometimes the desire that actually, the desire in the sense, not every desire, the desire and the spiritual desire that brews in our heart is actually a proof of God, that whatever you desire, if your desire is very sincere and pleasing to the Lord, it's something that's going to really happen in the future. It's going to happen in the future, and it is something, and when it happens in the future, it's actually a proof that God exists. Because how can you just desire something in the past, that I want to be like that, and then in the future you end up being like that, and then you feel like, how did that happen? Because I remember saying to you know Tina Mataji, like Tulsi Devi, when we used to go to Bhakti Shastri classes in 2008, she used to sing very nice kirtan, and I used to say like, I felt like I like presenting philosophy, so I said I can give class, but I can never do kirtan like in front of even 10 people or 15 people or 20 people. I can never do kirtan. I'll never feel comfortable, and that too in harmonium. There's no way, because I'm just going to freak out. And then he said, no, you can do it. So I'm just putting that simple example that because of she doing, and I also recollect another thing, because whenever I came to Krishna, whenever I came to temple, I like philosophy, I like the class, because it was like very intellectual, it actually made you understand something, it gave you the kick for your inquisitive brain. But then kirtan was one thing which I didn't enjoy at all, and then and Aarti was another thing which I didn't enjoy at all, because people are dancing around and they try to pull you in, and I didn't feel I fit into that. But I came just for the classes. But then the first time I really enjoyed kirtan was basically in when I went to Sankarshan Das Maharaj retreat. That's when Tulsi Devi Mataji was doing kirtan in harmonium, and it was so sweet. That's the first time I felt like, wow, kirtan can be so nice. Then I started to get to, and I remember even like I was doing some service on Sunday in the kitchen on Sunday feast, and there's one other Mataji who was saying like, because Aarti started at 7 o'clock, and she was telling to the cook, then I have to go, this kirtan started, I have to go to the Aarti. I'm like, what is so great about going to the Aarti and jumping in the kirtan? Like cutting vegetables for devotees is much, like whatever you're doing, cutting vegetables is much more pleasurable than actually sitting in the Aarti. So I had this view. So, but then because of that appreciation to another devotee's service, you get that desire. So similarly, that Krishna consciousness also is bruised. Like if you have a desire, if I see, let's say I see you guys distributing books nice, and I have a desire, or if I see another devotee serving prasadam nicely, you have that desire, like, oh, I should just want to be like that, I want to serve devotees like that devotee. Now that's the thought. And if you're sincere in this thought, Krishna will make that happen. So that is the hope that we have now. So we'll just continue reading the purport. So a liberated soul is never bewildered by such a mistaken idea. So why did Narada ask all these questions just like an ordinary man with a profound of knowledge? There was such bewilderment in Arjuna also. Although he is eternally the associate of Lord, such bewilderment in Arjuna or Narada takes place by the will of the Lord, so that the other unliberated persons may realize the real truth and knowledge of the Lord. The doubt arising in the mind of Narada about Brahmaji being all-powerful is a lesson for the frogs in the well, that they may not be bewildered by misconceiving the identity of the personality of Godhead, even by comparison to the personality of Brahma, or what to speak of ordinary men who falsely post themselves as God or incarnation. The Supreme Lord is always the Supreme, and as we have tried to establish many times in these purports, no living being, even up to the standard of Brahma, can claim to be one with the Lord. One should not be misled when people worship a great man as God after his death as a matter of hero worship. There are many kings like Lord Ramachandra, the king of Ayodhya, but none of them were mentioned as God in the revealed scriptures. To be a good king is not necessarily the qualification of being Lord Ram, but to be a great personality like Krishna is the qualification of being the personality of Godhead. If we scrutinize the characters who took part in the battle of Kurukshetra, we may find that Maharaj Yudhishthira was no less a pious king than Lord Ramachandra, and by character study, Maharaj Yudhishthira was a better moralist than Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna asked Lord Maharaj Yudhishthira to lie, but Maharaj Yudhishthira protested, but that does not mean that Maharaj Yudhishthira could not be equal to Lord Ramachandra or Lord Krishna. The great authorities have estimated Maharaj Yudhishthira to be a pious man, but they have accepted Lord Ram or Krishna as the personality of Godhead. The Lord is therefore a different identity in all circumstances, and no idea of anthropomorphism can be applied to him. The Lord is always the Lord, and a common living being can never be accepted to him. So again, it talks about why does Narada or even Arjuna are being put into this bewilderment, and it's just to teach other living entities. Because sometimes even in classes, right, when Maharaj gives class or something like that, some people who are new to Krishna consciousness, they might be a little bit scared to ask the question, like, how am I to come out of this illusory nature, or like, I'm so attached to sense gratification and everything, so they might be a little bit scared. But then at that time, just to kickstart the discussion, there may be a senior devotee in the lecture. He might just ask a very simple question, and then with other people who are just starting their Krishna consciousness, if he can ask such a question, then I can also ask the doubts of my heart. So it just gives them the opportunity. So similarly, when people like Narada Muni and Arjuna ask this question, then they ask for our benefit and also gives us the confidence, like, okay, that's fine, I can also ask my question. And Prabhupada always says that the reason why it does happen is, gives a famous example, like how a mother-in-law teaches the daughter-in-law through his own daughter. Like when the daughter-in-law is new to the home, it's very hard to chastise her or correct her. She might feel uncomfortable or not being welcome. So she'll ask the daughter to do the same job as the daughter-in-law, and then she will correct the daughter in a way, and then the daughter-in-law might think like, oh my God, I did the mistake, but thank God my mother-in-law didn't actually find it out. She thought it's her daughter. Next time I'll be more careful. So in that way, it's a Vedic tradition of education, how to teach people. So, and it's the same way that happens. And sometimes we take, as devotees, sometimes we get confused when Krishna puts us in a bit of difficulty. We think that why is Krishna doing that to me? Now the whole point Krishna is doing that to you is because you are very close to Krishna. You're very close to Sri Radha Gopinath, you're serving Radha Gopinath, so he tries to teach others through you. So as we all know, like when we get initiated, when we when we actually take up the process of devotional service, we are directly taken care by Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. So sometimes when these difficulties happen and there is no apparent reason that I've been doing my devotion service correctly, there's no reason that I should be put in this predicament situation, like this difficult situation. Like, for example, like you said something to a devotee and it totally been mistaken, and then you've been accused of certain things and all these things, and could be a past karma, but then out of nowhere it just blows up, You might think, what's happening? It's just, we just have to take it as a way that Sri Radha Gopinath is teaching to other people how to handle yourself in these situations so that others might actually take it as an example. So for example, let's say you are a more calmer person in personality, and there's another person who's a bit more short-tempered, and then you kind of have the same situation which is supposed to be for him, but then you're made to go through the situation. And then seeing the way you deal with situation, the person with the short temper, he might think, oh my God, if the situation happened to me, I would have totally blown the situation out of proportion, and then I could have accused it. I would have literally made a difficult place for everybody to stay, not just for me. I would have made sure, like, if you're giving problem to me, let me see my power, like I'll make this whole place a chaos. But then just seeing the way you handle, he might think like, oh my God, just see how maturely that devotee handled it. Now, if same situation comes to me, or if the situation comes to me, then he might recollect, oh, this is not the way to handle. I need to take some wisdom from the way that it was handled by the other devotees. So that could be the reason. So you don't exactly know how the hands of Shri Shri Radha Gopinath plays in our life. It's not always that we are actually in the wrong situation and we actually have to go through it. It's also to teach someone. Like Jaipatak Maharaj going through all these difficulties is not, you can't literally say because of his karma. Or he did so much sinful activities that he's undergoing karma. It's not like that. Because of him, he's going to be like how we have Srila Prabhupada as example. He's going to be given as example for a lot of generations to come. There was a devotee called Jaipatak Maharaj, and he underwent this one, and how he managed and how he continued devotion service even in those conditions is going to be great inspiration for a lot of generations. So if we want to be inspiration to a lot of people, then we have to accept these trials and tribulations from Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. But otherwise, there's no reason for Radha Gopinath to put unnecessarily devotees into trouble, because they're trying to teach the whole world. And and also another thing is, when the difference when the scientists teach about being independent, it's very similar to the Mayavad philosophy, because if you consider that you need to be totally materially independent or totally independent, that is a great material consciousness, because people who want to be materially independent, they call atheists. But then again, the Mayavadis who want to be totally independent of serving anyone or being answerable to anyone is basically another form of atheism, because they don't want to be asked questions, they don't want to be judged, because they want to be God. So if you become God, what does it mean? That means like nobody can ask you a question, you get free to do anything, and you are basically Krishna. Now that's the position they want to be. So I want to conclude saying that in the pastime of Krishna's birth, now we also have this tendency of controlling the nature. So when Krishna was born, as we know, like in Mathura, when everybody, all the gods, Kamsa had all the gods, just for them to give the information back to him that when Krishna is born, it has to be conveyed to him as soon as possible. And all these gods were there just for that reason. Now when Krishna was born, they all were put into slumber,
and they didn't know that Krishna was born. So Vasudeva actually took Krishna all the way across Yamuna, put him in Nanda Maharaj's house, and he brought the Yogamaya, who was born as the child of Yashodamai, and then he brought it back, put it next to Devaki. I mean, Yogamai, like, who was a small girl, it's like she just wants the drama to finish, so she just cries. So, and then once hearing that cry, all the guards, they just got up, and then they felt, everyone who got up, they felt like they're the controller. They found out that the child was born to Vasudeva and Devaki, but it didn't happen until all these things happened, So basically, when you see dogs, when the dogs are sleeping, the stray dogs are sleeping in the street, there could be one thief or something who might have passed through. Now, one of the dog would have actually heard something, or it could be just a random sound. Now, one of the stray dogs will just get up and start barking. Now, all the other stray dogs, which they wouldn't have seen anything, they'll just stand up and bark, not knowing why they're barking for and from what happened and anything. So sometimes we are in the same situation because we feel that we are controllers. Now, when we achieve something, we just kind of get up and feel like, we've done something. But just as the jailers of Kamsa, they got up only when Yogamaya gave them the permission to get up, like when she cried. If she hasn't cried, they would have just slept the whole night and then they would got up next day morning. But she just didn't want to just stay around here, for nothing. She just cried. So they got up. But from them, for their perspective, they thought like, oh my God, we are the controllers. Just see, even the slightest noise, we got up and we informed King Kamsa about all this, that the child was born. But a lot of things happened before that. So in that way, when we perform a service or perform any duty, we are actually able to perform that service or duty only because of the permission of Shri Radha Gopinath. So other than that, if they don't give you the permission to do something, literally you can't perform anything. But then to get up after all the arrangements has been done by Shri Radha Gopinath for you to do some service, and if we have that attitude that I am the controller, I am the Purusha, I actually did the service, and because without me, the whole thing would have been a total failure. It's an attitude that we need to correct. I'm not saying everybody has that attitude or it's wrong to have, that's why we are here, but it's something that we can be introspective to actually correct it. So similarly as here, like how Narada Muni is asking Lord Brahma about what is that. So the whole spiritual journey that we're going through is actually more about understanding ourselves and then trying to clean ourselves rather than changing the whole world. Because if we have seen in the past times of Dhruva Maharaj and even Hiranyakashipu that one person's austerity created a disturbance of the whole universe. So, and this one person like Srila Prabhupada could create the whole change to the world. And Jesus Christ, as one person, he spread Christianity because of him. So that one, never ever think the effort of one person can't actually make a big change. If we change from ourselves, the amount of reach out that we can do is amazing. So I'll stop here. Hare Krishna. Any questions, comments? Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. Yep. Yes. Yes. Yeah. No, I think, so the question was, you're saying in the purport, why was not Lord Ramchandra mentioned as king? No, I think he's mentioned as king. I think when I read it first time, I got confused.
So there are many kings like Lord Ramachandra, the king of Ayodhya. So they're saying many kings, but none of them are mentioned as God in revealed scriptures. So I think this, what Prabhupada is saying is like Ramachandra is the king of God, but just because being a king, not everybody is considered as Lord. But then because it's Lord Ramachandra, he is actually considered to be the king. Does that answer? Like the first thing that you mentioned was like, why was Lord Ramachandra not considered, because he was a king, but why is he not considered as Supreme Personal Godhead, right? So but the purport says there were many kings like Lord Ramachandra, who is the king of Ayodhya, but not everyone, but none of them was mentioned as God in revealed scriptures. So only Lord Ramachandra was considered. So being a king is not necessarily a position. Even Krishna was king, but it's not that Krishna was considered to be a god just because he was king. Krishna was considered God even when he was born, like even when he was like 10 days old or like 7 days old, he killed Putana. So I think the thing is, being a devotee, like it doesn't matter, like even the devotees, it doesn't matter what background you come from. So if you become a devotee, like in Chaitanya Sarma says, like whichever ashram you belong, but once you become a Vaishnava or a pure devotee, then you're eligible to become a guru. So similarly, God doesn't come in, there's no qualification of God that he has to have them certain way of things. So he came as, like, we have this conception that, okay, if I go to a party, I need to dress up nicely to actually have that status, and so people need to respect me. But Krishna came as fish, he came as boar, he came as half lion, half human form, everything, but he still, like, I think he proved to the whole world or the universe that he has the same potency no matter which form. Sorry, does that answer your question? Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.